Well, a very special good morning to the Mortgage Coach community and all the participants in today's event. Here at Mortgage Coach, as everyone knows, our job is to help you help the families and realtors you serve make confident mortgage decisions with the correct insights and information. And today we're thrilled to have Mortgage Coach co-founder Dave Savage and industry personality Dave Ramsey on the phone today to have a very interesting conversation with a lot of takeaways that everyone can use today. So with that, Dave Savage, Dave Ramsey, we look forward to the dialogue.
Right on, Joe. Thanks for teeing it up. So everybody, welcome to a special call. As you know, we are always bringing in, top performers in the industry, great loan officers, industry leaders, and of course, we're always looking to bring authors, speakers. And today we have someone who's not only an author, speaker, but a celebrity. Dave Ramsey, welcome to the call.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's good. Thank you for making time for the Mortgage Coach community. It's going to be great to have a message directly from you to mortgage professionals. So to set the table, one of the visions that I founded Mortgage Coach on, over 15 years ago, and I don't remember exactly when I saw this quote, but a mediocre teacher tells, a good teacher explains, a superior teacher demonstrates, but great teachers inspire. I mean, this really was the impetus to Mortgage Coach, because I always had the heart of a teacher, even though I was a salesperson. But the way mortgage people deliver advice, I just felt like it certainly was not inspiring. It's like it's a transaction. So, Dave, I think you know this because you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Mike Hardwick and the Churchill team. They've good friends of Mortgage Coach, great Mortgage Coach leaders, and you're good friends with them. So, our vision here has always been that every time a family gets into debt, they should get a comparison. They should always get the cost over time and get it in a way that they understand, which is typically a mobile digital experience. And then again, the message you've taught us all, I probably learned this from you, but the power of just prepaying your mortgage and how much interest you could save. So, our mission, Dave, has always been to help loan officers deliver that using technology in a way that inspires, So I guess to set it up, I have a number of questions, but how important do you think it is for loan officers to leverage mobile, leverage, video as it pertains to helping and educating families?
Well, loan officers are in business, and they're operating in business in America today. And so 100% we are sure inside of our organization that if you're not mobile, and you're not using video, you're going to be out of business. The digital experience is how people are connecting. It's how they're doing community. The videos need to be authentic. They need to be short. There are people making $10 million a year that most of the people on this call have never heard of as YouTube stars. If you were to flip on their YouTube channel and look at it and watch some of the videos, you'd be going, say, what? That little nerd? Really? And so you do not have to be an anchor with 45 minutes in the makeup room in order to sit down. You just need to be authentic. You need to be direct and to the point. Don't drag it out. Never do anything on video over 1:26 seconds.
I love it, Dave. I kept that aligns so much with what we teach. Just say their name. It's okay if you and ah. Let them know that you heard them.
It's better if you do. Because
right.
they don't want plastic. They want people. They want to talk to a human freaking being.
Love it. Love it. Well, everybody, you heard it from Dave Ramsey. So, Dave, I know you well. I follow you. I'm a huge fan. But for anybody on the call, what type of influence are you and your movement having on America right now? How many families are listening to your show? How many people are going through your program through churches? Just give us a little feel for the influence that you have right now.
You want me to tell you how pretty my baby is? I can do that.
Yeah. Give a little color.
Well, we're real proud of our team. They work really, really hard. We've just hired our 500th team member, and so it's turned into a big deal around here. And there's so many different things we're doing that are they're connected, and yet a lot of the people in the different spaces don't know they're there. For instance, we just had our 2 millionth high school senior graduate from our high school curriculum. We're in 34% of the high schools in America with that curriculum. And most people don't even know that about us. The Total Money Makeover book just sold its 5 millionth copy. It's our 5th New York Times best-selling book. We have 5 other major speakers, the Ramsey personalities going around the country speaking and teaching. And the first New York Times #1 bestseller came out with me last spring with my daughter Rachel. And then Chris Hogan will have one coming out in the retirement space that'll be a #1 in January. There's about 10 million, 10.5 million people listening to the radio show, but 2 million of them are on the podcast because the podcast has exploded. Again, you've got to have a digital and a video mindset. The podcast is not video, it's audio only, but we've developed an entire audio channel as well that's got about 1 million a day watching it. We've had our 40,000th church teach Financial Peace University to our 4 millionth person this year. Wow. It's just, it just goes on. I mean, the number, it just boggles my mind that this kid from Antioch, Tennessee, God has used us to this level. But we've worked our butts off, and, we just keep helping people, and I keep putting people in the organization smarter than me, and they keep doing things I don't understand that are highly successful. So it's awesome.
Oh, well, I love it. This quote I have on the screen right now is absolutely one of my favorite quotes that you have. And one of my goals throughout this conversation right now is that, the mortgage coach community and the type of mortgage professionals and real estate professionals that are on this call, they have the heart of a teacher. They would not be investing in us. They wouldn't be on this call today if they didn't have that heart. But, they're not always executing. So, one, I want to make sure everybody on this call, how to connect with Dave Ramsey, download his app, make sure that you're listening to his shows. I've got a screen right here, but just, go to your app store, type in Dave Ramsey. It's really easy to get to. Make sure you're listening to the show. But Dave, I want to focus the first half of this call on, the borrower conversation. What are the most important considerations for a family when buying a home and getting a mortgage?
Well, I think that we have to get past just the transaction of getting a mortgage. We've always known, and your top performers have always known, that getting the mortgage is a transaction. But if you're only transactional, you have to get customers over and over and over again. If you want a customer for life, you have to build a relationship. And what that means is you have to find out what their real goals are. And their real goals aren't a mortgage. The mortgage is so they can get a house. Why they want to get a house? So they can have stability and build wealth and over time, which means they want to get rid of the mortgage. And so the transaction, if that's all you ever do, you're going to have to do business over and over and over again. If you'll do relationships and cause them to hit their goals, then, which is what the total cost analysis does. I mean, that's, that drives you past the transaction down into the relationship, and you have to find out what the human being that you're dealing with, what their goals are, and then you have to treat them like an actual person and not just a transaction. When you do that, you change the way you're doing business. You change the tone of your voice, the verbiage, the pace, the impatience leaves your voice, the disgust leaves your voice, because it's a human you're dealing with all of a sudden, and you're helping them live their dream rather than just trying to get the freaking loan closed so I can get my commission. And it's so short-sighted, and yet people do it every day, and all of us that are performers, that are task-oriented people, that are high performers, we can get to task mode, but boy, we've got to be reminded to start at the relationship, go into the goals, go to something like a total cost analysis, which shows them how they're hitting their goals. Then the transaction is the byproduct, and then everybody's happy. By the way, they'll send their friends to you, and they'll come back for life.
I love it. I love it. So, I heard your daughter, Rachel, speak at Sales Mastery a few years ago, and I'm a huge fan of her work and a huge fan of, your work together and how you're bringing fiscal literacy and education to kids, families, young families. Would she answer this question any differently for a young family?
No. I mean, she and her husband are debt-free. They've got their house paid off, and she's going to talk to a 25-year-old and say, never take out more than a 15-year fixed-rate mortgage where the payment's more than a fourth of your income, and have a goal of paying it off in 7. And that's a standard mantra out of everyone in this organization. And it doesn't really change whether you're in LA or whether you're 50 or whether you're 25 or whether you live in Abilene. You don't get a pass on math because of your age or your geographical location. You still have to get the mortgage out of the way, which allows you to build incredible wealth with what would have been payments to a mortgage company.
Well, there's so much talk that, the young families now, a home's not as important to them, or, there's they're different. I guess what's your take on that? All this information out there saying that millennials are like these different people. There's no doubt they live on mobile and they do life at the speed of mobile. But anything that you add to that just around the whole millennial, because we read about it every day in the news.
I'm getting old, and so I've heard every generation that came up that was special, and it turns out none of them are. You really, you don't get a pass on math. And the truth is, if you're a millennial, 30 years from now, that house you're living in that you think is cute to jump around and rent, and jump, because you're so mobile and you want to keep everything in your freaking backpack, that may be cute as a philosophy of life, but try living in that house 30 years from now when the cost of that house is gone. Think about what houses sold for 30 years ago. If you had had that mentality, you'd be homeless right now. That's so absurd. It's ridiculous. And so, no, you need to buy a home. And you need to make that, assuming you're out of debt and you have your emergency fund in place, you have your down payment, the stuff we teach. But at the point that your philosophy is, I want to be able to go backpacking in Europe at the drop of a hat. Well, that lock the house and go. But you need to have a house.
Got it. And just to be clear, I know your books cover this in detail, but I want to just capture something, 30 minutes right now on your philosophies. And obviously the building blocks are debt-free faster. Why 15 years? What's your philosophy on that? And what message would you have to loan officers around this?
Well, again, our goal is to participate with the customer, and our goal would be on the call to get you to participate with the customer in their goals, not just getting them in a mortgage and not just getting them in a house. And the longer the mortgage and the more volatile the mortgage, the more short-term thinking and transactional the whole process is. The shorter the mortgage, and the more you're involved in their personal goals to cause them to hit those goals, the more you've built a customer for life. And that's from you guys' perspective, that's how I would look at it. From our perspective, the way that weaves in is it's simply this. You guys have all looked, if you've been in the mortgage business more than 20 minutes, you've looked at the math. What you would be amazed about, and what we forget about sometimes, and you might be too much in the forest, so I'll remind you what the trees look like. About half the people walking around in America think that when you go from a 30 to a 15, it doubles your payment. About half of them. If you did man on the street, silly Jay Leno interviews, you would find that people with master's degrees think your payment doubles.
Right.
And it's amazing that, and I talk to them every day with 10 million listeners, people calling the radio. And so number one, we all know it's 25% or so more is all. It doesn't double. And then the thing is, the cool thing about a 15-year mortgage is it always pays off in 15 years or less. And
right.
The faster you get your house paid for, your home paid for, the faster you've got that huge chunk of your income available to build wealth with.
Well, mortgage coaches on the call, most of the people on this call are members of ours. One of my goals for everybody on this call is that you really start delivering this experience to every family. You heard it from Dave Ramsey. I think it was a pretty clear, common sense message. Know what people's goals are, and then net it out for them. Don't estimate what it is. Say, this is what the 30 is. This is what the 15-year is. What is the cost over time? Which, by the way, Dave, that's a new requirement that's coming to our industry, which I think is a huge win for American families, that every loan officer will be required to tell every family in America, this is your cost over 5 years. So they can really start seeing that big number. And then I think it would be, I'm sure you would like it, if the CFPB and made it a rule where every time you get into debt, understand the cost and how you could pay off your debt faster and how much interest you could save. So every mortgage coach on this call, hopefully you will start delivering the cost over time, showing people how to pay off their debt faster, giving them, how long does that video need to be, Dave?
Minute 26 seconds max. Yeah.
So
honestly, I'll interrupt you. My personal opinion is I just wish the CFPB would just go away. I just wish it didn't exist. And then that we in the business, you guys in the business, provided this service as a method of doing the right thing for your customers without some freaking government agency telling you how to run your business. But maybe that's just an editorial you didn't need. But those people are a nightmare.
Well, I'm sure there's people on this call that would feel that. At the end of the day, we have to deal with it. And then what we try to bring to our team is, hey, we've got these compliance, we've got these rules, let's turn it into a competitive advantage. And usually, Dave, to your point, doing that is kind of going beyond. I mean, they're saying, hey, you got to do the cost over time. Well, what about just going above and beyond that and showing everybody the cost of paying off their mortgage faster?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, when I put on the screen when I was doing an event and I put on the screen with 2,000 people sitting in an audience, the total cost of a 15-year versus the total cost of a 30-year, and which is a very primitive version of what you're talking about. It's audible, Dave. You can hear it in the audience. There's an ooh, ah. You think you're watching The Price is Right or something,
right.
Vanna, or what is the Wheel of Fortune? Vanna flipped a letter, ooh, ah. You can hear it in the room. It's like never saw that before in my life, and I graduated from college kind of audible reaction.
Well, that is the goal. I mean, our goal at Mortgage Coach, until you've had a family go, oh, I never thought of that before, or wow, that's a lot of money. I mean, that's the name of the game. Until they've either said it out loud, which is the big boom, or that you can just see by their body language that they're going, this is big. That's it. That's what everybody should be in business for. And again, our goal is to make sure you say it in a way that connects emotionally, and you show it. So Dave, let's, before we get into loan officers and realtors, because I do want to get into that, let's talk about consistency. Obviously you execute at a really high level. You're doing a radio show, and every time you show up, you are just bringing your A game. And one of my biggest struggles being a teacher and mentor to mortgage professionals is I find that if someone's a grinder and really pushes them, they show up and they can bring their A game. But it's a family that barely qualifies and is just like, hey, you just tell me what to do and I'll do anything. They bring their C game and they don't educate the family. Like, oh, they don't care. They're just happy they got a mortgage. And what ends up happening is that 90%, of the folks that are going through the mortgage experience, they don't become more fiscally literate. They don't get the loan officer's A game. And I just believe that, one, every family deserves the A game, but I also think that all the best, they deliver it. So what's your take on consistency?
Well, the Bible says the diligent prosper. And what diligence is excellence in the ordinary. And very few people have excellence in the ordinary. But it is actually probably the number one character quality of highly successful people, is that they're excellent in the ordinary. It's game on every day. And for those of us that are people of faith, it's I'm doing my work as unto the Lord. And so it doesn't matter if it's a C-level client, a B-level client, an A-level client. I'm not really working for them anyway. And so I'm going to bring it. It's strap on, strap in, A game. Bring it. Don't sign up. Don't show up. And so we play hard. We work hard. That's who we are. And the diligent do prosper. But we live in such a microwave culture where you hit the lottery and that means you're rich, and yet it really doesn't. The number one way to build wealth is not the lottery. The number one way to build wealth is be the tortoise, don't be the hare. Every time I read the book, the ugly, slow guy that's steady wins. And so I tell business leaders all the time, try to get your picture on the front of Slow Company magazine. Slow and steady. Instead of like, here I am, I'm the latest, coolest, sexiest thing in business. Instead of that, just go, I'm just showing up every day, and all you pretty people that have all these smarts and all this other stuff, and you have all these little techniques and all this other garbage, I'm still going to be here when you're all gone and burn out, because I'm going to still be running the marathon. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Excellence every day.
I love it. And if you're on this call, you're a mortgage professional, you're not closing 5 or more loans a month, there's something you got to change. There's a way to do it. Change is painful, but bring your A game and help families make better decisions. So
well,
Dave,
they say winners don't quit. They quit all the time. They quit doing the stupid stuff that's not working.
Right? Is that the truth? I've got one of your quotes as we wrap up today's interview where we'll go down on that. So let's talk about the loan officer realtor partnership. I don't know how to characterize you, but between all the realtors that are part of your network that are helping families, there's no one out there that is helping put more families into homes and helping those families get the right mortgage. So what advice or suggestions do you have for mortgage professionals when it comes to networking and just working to better with realtors?
Well, I got my real estate license 3 weeks after I turned 18 years old, and I'm just turning 55. So I've been in the real estate business or around it all my life. I love real estate. I just love the business. I love everything about it. So having 2,200 endorsed local providers in the real estate segment that we endorse in different cities all around America that have to meet our guidelines in order to get our endorsement, and in order for us to send Dave Ramsey listeners to them is an honor. And but I mean, realtors are fun. They're a complete bunch of drama queens, the ones that are good anyway. They're always on edge. They're always running. They're always volatile. They're half of them are are bipolar. You know, they're manic, or they're either depressed or they're partying. You know, I mean, I love them. I was just with about 600 of them, speaking to them Monday, and so and none of that is meant to be disparaging. But you just have to realize the animal you're working with. I mean, the animal you're working with has a glamour shot on their business card. This is who you're dealing with. And so, so that tells you right there, you know. And I told them that to their face, by the way. So, you know, it's a different kind of person, and they're wonderful for the job that they do, and they take great satisfaction in getting a family or an individual into a home or into a piece of real estate. And so, just know all of that when you come to bat and you become part of their team, when you come to bat on that team. And you weave your service level into those personality styles of that particular realtor. Not all of them fall under the stereotype I just threw out, obviously. But, you know, just line up with that and then figure out a way to help them cause the transaction to occur as smoothly as possible, and help them get on board with this whole idea that we're trying to develop a relationship that causes the customer to achieve their goals. We're not simply trying to close the mortgage. Closing the mortgage is the byproduct of this whole process. It is not the sole goal. If it is the sole goal, then you're starting to lose the soul of your business.
Right. Now, one of the things that we teach loan officers is we teach how important it is to deliver video as part of the experience between the loan officer, the borrower, and the realtor. And, you know, one of our philosophies is if the loan officer puts a video within how they explain their options and they loop in the realtor, everybody is connected. It's efficient communication. And I've always believed that all of the best loan officers and really the best realtors, it's all about communication. You know, yes, they work hard. Yes, they bring their A game, but it's how they communicate. So, you know, do you see that? I mean, you know, when you think of video, mobile, the ability to connect as a cornerstone to success?
Yeah, if you don't bring in all the players on the team to cause the home run to occur, then relationally what you're doing is you're triangulating, and you're leaving somebody out. And then the person that's left out feels like the 13-year-old kid in the corner of the lunchroom in middle school. And so instead, what you've got to do is to loop everyone in. And the beautiful thing about our digital world is it's pretty easy. It's just reply to all. You know, I mean, we just keep the realtor involved. I keep if there's a closing attorney, keep them involved. I don't care. There's no secrets here that you're breaching on someone, unless you're obviously can't publish it to their mother-in-law or something. It's their private information. But all the players that are causing this transaction to occur, which the net result of is the family's goals are being met. Yes, loop them in. Why not? You know, make sure that everybody's involved. And you know, here's the side issue of that pops into my head, and I don't know how you guys view this stuff, but to me, if I'm the realtor on the other side of that, and I get the video piece and I get the total cost analysis, and I've never gotten that from any other mortgage broker that I've dealt with, and by the way, it's not me getting it, it's my client getting it, but I'm seeing that you're doing this for my client. I just found that I've got a guy that plays at an A-plus level or a gal that plays at an A-plus level. I'm not dealing with the C players anymore.
Right on. Great leadership, great advice. So, folks, we're getting down to the last 5 minutes. I see a lot of questions coming in on the GoToMeeting. Feel free to post those questions. I don't know that we'll get to all of them. We might get to one, but they would help us prepare for future conversations with Dave. So, Joe Patur, I'm going to bring you in a minute, see if you have a question for Dave. But, you know, as we go into the wrap-up, you know, we know that being a successful loan officer requires hard work. It requires doing the right things right. But think of yourself as speaking to this audience of both mortgage professionals and realtors. You know, if you had some wisdom to share that would help them raise their success levels, what would that be?
Well, I think the thing is, it's some of the oldest, it's tale as old as time. It's some of the oldest things we've all heard over and over. And the reason they're cliches is there's a truth to them. and it's something as simple as saying, I'm going to have a written goal in each area of my life. I'm going to live intentional. When people are intentional about anything and they make it a priority, they can do almost anything. I mean, if you're intentional about your marriage, suddenly your marriage gets better. You're intentional about your kids, suddenly your kids get better. You're intentional about your physical condition, suddenly your physical condition starts getting better. But the problem is we take our eye off the ball on these different things and don't have the power of intentionality working for us. And so in business, it's the same way. And the trick is this. Most people can be intentional with something for 30 days, maybe even 90 days. But very few people can do it for a whole year, and almost no one can do it for a decade. You do it for a decade, you're a world changer.
Absolutely. So, folks, I want to make sure everybody gets Dave's app. Make sure you go to his website. I mean, it's truly one of the best websites out there. There's so much content, live events. You know, if you haven't read his book, make sure you get his book. I've done a couple site visits, Dave, and it's truly an experience. People just don't realize, you know, the type of empire that you have and the type of value that you're creating for Americans. So I hope everybody checks that out. I hope all you mortgage coaches on this call, you're inspired to just do better. You know, make sure every family gets that mortgage coach experience, but also make sure every realtor does. I mean, at the end of the day, every family's walking around with MLS in their back pocket now. So when it comes to delivering numbers and fees, you got to do it with bar charts. You got to make sure at open houses you have the mortgage coach experience out there so that the realtors are showing it. And here at Mortgage Coach, we're always pushing the envelope to provide value to families when they're out looking for homes, and to do that in a way with our latest innovation, My Nest. So make sure you're checking this out. Make sure that you're having mobile conversations. Make sure you're driving video. And Dave, you know, as we wrap this up, I don't know if you have another minute or two for any questions from the audience.
Absolutely.
So you do have a couple minutes for questions from the audience?
Sure.
Well, why don't we start with a question from Joe Patura, President. Joe, do you have any questions for Dave while I search through our audience questions and try to pull some gold out of this?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Dave and Dave, for this conversation. I think from the comments I'm seeing, it's been very engaging. And I've got a few of the questions from the chat, Dave, that I can share with Dave right now. But first and foremost, a number of people here have said that it's your birthday today, Mr. Ramsey, and happy birthday to you if that is accurate.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean,
thank you.
There's definitely about 20, 30 folks who have commented on it. So again, happy birthday wishes from our community.
Thank you.
So you know, there's a number of questions here around the 15-year mortgage philosophy, and for many of the mortgage coach originators, when they show a total cost analysis, they always show a 15-year option. But there's a lot of concentration of folks in California and other markets where it could be challenging based on the home prices, even with dual income. Do you have any insight for the professionals here that are working in some of those challenging markets where the median home price is over $300,000-$400,000?
Well, the way you can tell if a philosophy you're dealing with is good is stress test it, meaning add some zeros to it and see if your philosophy still works. Warren Buffett always says that you can tell who was skinny dipping when the tide goes out. And so what I'm saying is this. I had a guy call me the other day who's living in Orange County on the air. He's making $45,000 a year. And he wants me to tell him how to buy a house in Orange County. And my answer is real simple. You can't. When you're making $45,000 a year, live in Orange County. That's Los Angeles, for those of you that don't know. I mean, no. So, you do not get a pass on math because, you cannot buy $1.2 million house making $45,000 just because home ownership matters and just because you think you want to. It's toughies. Sorry, darling, that's not how the world works. So that's an extreme example that applies right back to this then to say, again, when you live in California or you live in Manhattan, you don't get a pass on math. You still have to have an income to debt ratio to qualify for the mortgage first off, but also then to be able to do away with the mortgage so that you can build wealth. Now, if you want to use the fact that you live in one of those markets as an excuse to stay in debt, that's okay. but I don't think that's wise.
Sure. I think that's a great way of looking at the philosophy from a different perspective. Certainly, if you can't afford it mathematically, you should reconsider your options. That being said, the dream of home ownership for many Americans is on the top of their list of what they want to achieve. And so looking at the other end of the spectrum, not necessarily the Silicon Valleys, but the areas where even a $200,000 home could be a stretch for a first-time borrower. When you have a family that is just able to qualify and is really, dead set motivated on purchasing a home, obviously the people here on this call, their job is to be quality advisors, but also to make that dream come true. What kind of advice do you have for somebody when the borrower is just at that barely able to qualify but qualifying point?
To advertise on the Dave Ramsey Show right now takes a minimum of $1.5 million a year. A minimum. If you want to be be endorsed by us on the radio show full time every day as an ad. We have people come to us all the time who can't afford that, but believe deep down in their soul and have this tremendous desire and this tremendous yearning that if we'll just put them on the air, after the first month of ads, they'll be able to sell enough because the Dave Ramsey Show is such a big deal, they'll be able to sell enough to pay their bills. And that's running your life on a wing and a prayer. So those are potential customers. I could take their money for a month. I also know that 99% of them are going to hit the wall like NASCAR with the engine up in the stands. And so have I really done them a favor making them a customer? No. So I actually love them enough to tell them no. No, you cannot advertise on the Dave Ramsey Show because I will not participate in your destruction. You can't afford it. And so if a couple is getting in on a wing and a prayer, the thread of a piece of dental floss is getting them into a home. They've got $50,000 in student loan debt, 3 car payments, and they're barely qualifying on their high-end ratio. You're not doing them any favors. You're participating in a future foreclosure. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
So the perspective, I think that's important too, that sometimes being an advisor means not taking the transaction and helping that family come back with a healthier financial portfolio. Now, switching gears a little bit, this question has come up a few times in the chat as well, is private mortgage insurance. Just in the general terminology, the idea that there are programs other than FHA loans, and there's a lot of talk with the changes in the GSEs and whatnot, the private mortgage insurance players having a greater role. Do you have a perspective or an opinion on PMI in general?
Well, it's the one time with a first-time home buyer that I'm okay with it, where you're not putting down 20%, because a lot of times they don't have the 20%. And that's a time I don't feel like I'm participating in a future foreclosure to allow a first-time home buyer to put 10% down on a Fannie Mae, and they're obviously going to get PMI when they do that. But I think any of us that know how to do math in your world can see that PMI is adding a full point to the APR, if not more. And so, it's a penalty for someone that overbuys based on their down payment on their loan-to-value ratio. So a second-time home buyer that calls me on the air, I'm telling them to stick with something that they can get in at least 20% down and avoid it completely. Because obviously, the root issue of PMI is you're buying foreclosure insurance for the mortgage company to be protected, and there's absolutely no benefit at all to the consumer. It's a complete waste. It's like the owner's, it's like the mortgage policy on the title policy side. The consumer gets absolutely no benefit of that. Of course, it's required to get that. And if I were issuing the mortgage, I would require it. I understand it. But the consumer gets no benefit for these dollars whatsoever. They're all associated with increased borrowing costs is what it amounts to. So anything I can do to get rid of the PMI people with, having proper LTV ratios is where I'm going to take the customer.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. But as you stated, there are those cases where it's the only option for the customer. But when it can be avoided, that's certainly great insight. Last question I have, Dave, coming from the chat, and again, if you have others, please feel free. There are a number of realtors on the call today as well, and a few of them have asked for insight in what they should do developing a relationship with mortgage lenders. Obviously, many of the folks on this call are the lenders themselves, But if you were talking to your realtor group, what would you suggest they should look for in a lending partner?
Well, I've known of NFL quarterbacks to buy their center a car. The center gets them the ball and blocks for them both, you know. And so key members of your team, I'm not suggesting you buy them a car, although none of them would turn it down. but my point is that valuing key team members on your team, even if they're not the ones in the spotlight, they cause you to be able to get your job done. And so, you know, in the NFL, if those guys that you don't know their name up front don't block, the guy that you do know their name gets killed in the backfield. And so, you know, you want to make sure that those guys that no one else knows their name is highly appreciated, and that you stop a minute and remember they have a family, that's their child that's in ICU right now because they fell and hit their head, or that's their grandmother's funeral that they're attending today. Oh, by the way, where was that, and did we send flowers? These are people. And so, and they're key players of your team, even though your customer may or may not connect to them as directly as they did to you. They feel like you sold them the house if you're the realtor, but there's a team behind that realtor that causes this full experience to occur. And even if the names aren't known as much in the spotlight, they're highly valuable, and you should treat them that way.
Well, that's tremendous advice, Dave. So, Mortgage Coach Professionals on today's call, I hope everybody is inspired that every family is going to get a better educational experience, total cost over time, debt-free faster. You heard it from Dave Ramsey. If you aren't using video and mobile, you're going to be out of business. So make sure every family gets that. I do want to remind everybody you're on this call. You are, Mortgage Coach every single day of the week. We are doing training. Next Thursday we're going to have Richard Horn as our guest, and he was when he was with the CFPB, the creator of TRID. So from my perspective, he's going to give you some insights that will give you a competitive advantage, because you're going to know the backstory and you're going to know things that average loan officers don't. So Dave, as we wrap it up, I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to thank you for staying a little extra. Any last words of wisdom for the Mortgage Coach community?
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with you guys. I love what you do. I love the real estate business. I think home ownership is a cornerstone of personal financial planning on the long term. It's something that everybody should be involved in, so we love it. And, I keep hearing you refer back to that, and I guess for some reason, I want to expand on it. What our team is finding internally, and we've got an incredibly world-class, bright digital team. We're continually studying how the marketplace is interfacing with our digital products, and we're continuing moving all of our products more and more digital every day. The internet started out as a place to look up things, and so it started out with content. And then it moved to audio. And literally, in the last 6 months, we're seeing a dramatic shift from audio to video. We do not launch a book. We do not launch a class. We do not launch anything in any space that we play in, but what it doesn't have a minute 26 trailer, video trailer, like a movie trailer going with it. It doesn't have something with it. All of our people internally are using video in every aspect of our business now, because that's where we're seeing all the data moving and the customers moving. So it wasn't just Dave Ramsey was saying that. I was a little bit nervous. It sounded like I knew what I was talking about. I'm observing what our people internally here are doing, and how, and the marketplace response, and what we've seen is the metrics on it are just, they're through the roof.
Well, that's good information, and if that's what your team is seeing, there's probably not a lot of teams in America that have more experience and obviously have more success at leveraging media to educate families. So I think it's great wisdom. Dave, I hope you come back sometime and join us on another call like this. On behalf of the entire Mortgage Coach community, we're grateful for your leadership, and thank you for joining us, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you having me.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you at the next educational event.